guys, this is Heidi with Kiddos Corral, and I got several requests. Monday I posted a video about making breakfast, and I was using some homemade bread, and people want to know how it is that I make the homemade bread. So I thought for this Sunday Simple Supper, since it is what some of you wanted to view, I would show you how to make the bread. So first and foremost, the very first thing that you're going to do is you're going to get yourself a package of yeast. Now, I'm going to try to show you the product. This is the one that I use. You just want to use one package of yeast. You also, tip, just make sure that it's not, check the expiration date, because if it's expired, it certainly isn't going to work. And I'm going to show you how you can tell if your yeast is good. So in this bowl here, I have 2 tablespoons of sugar. I'm going to simply add that to my yeast in this bowl. I have 1 1/4 cups of warm water. Now this water is at 115 degrees. You want it to be at least 115 degrees. Now, you're going to leave this set, and what this is going to do is the yeast is going to feed on the sugar, and it's actually going to activate the yeast, and I can already smell it. You're going to smell it, that yeast smell. It's going to get good and kind of foamy on top, but I already can tell that it's definitely going to work because of the smell that it releases once the yeast is activated. So while that is going, I've got 4 cups of bread flour. Now I'm going to tell you this, I have made bread with all-purpose flour. It has come out, but it has never ever came out as well as it has with the bread flour. I'm not I'm not a professional chef. I don't really honestly know what the difference is between bread flour and regular all-purpose flour. I know that, my grandmother, when she cooked, she never bought, she made bread and stuff. She never went out and bought specific bread flour to make bread that I know of. But now there is you can buy bread flour. Now, I buy my bread flour in a 55 I think it's 55-pound bag at Costco. I think you probably saw it in my Costco haul. This is from it. There's 4 cups in here. There's also 2 teaspoons of salt added. I think it's 2 teaspoons. Let me verify that, because I don't want to say it wrong. All right. That's right. It's 2 teaspoons of salt. And then in this bowl right here, I have 3 tablespoons of vegetable shortening, and it's melted. Now, I'm the type of person, I definitely follow a recipe that's written down, that I wrote down myself when I make the bread, because you don't want to leave out a step when you're making bread, because you can, one thing goes wrong and it won't come out. Now, I just melted my shortening in the microwave, and I'm just going to go ahead and pour this into my mixer. I'm going to get that in there. And then I have 1/3 cup of dry milk. It's the dairy powder. You can buy this in the baking section. And I'm just going to add that to my flour. And go ahead and get it all dumped in there. And then I'm just going to take my, I just take my, my measuring cup. I'm having a hard time with words today. And I'm just going to combine all that together in there really, really well. So I've got my salt, my dairy powder, and my flour in here. I've got my shortening in here, and I've got my yeast, which you can tell already that it's activating. Now, and it smells really good. Some people don't like the smell of yeast, but I do. It means that we're going to have some yummy, yummy bread this evening, and I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so once I get that in there, I am going to slowly combine this flour into my mixing bowl using a KitchenAid with a dough hook. Now, if you don't have a KitchenAid with a dough hook, you can knead this together by hand. And I'm going to get this started, and I'm going to come back and show you what it looks like. So I thought I would show you what this dough looks like once it's combined. Now, this dough is a little bit sticky of a dough, but that's okay. It's all going to come together and be wonderful. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this dough out of here, and I'm going to place it on my clean surface. What I have here is a large mixing bowl that I just took a brush and I greased it with canola oil, the entire thing. I left enough in here because when I get my dough, I am going to actually, you know, kind of roll it around inside of this canola oil, and then I'm going to place plastic wrap. And you want to make sure that this is securely covered, because when I first started making bread, one thing that I did learn is that if it's not covered securely, it can get hard, and it does affect the quality of your bread that you are making. So when I get this out of the mixer, I will show you exactly what it looks like before I put it in a bowl, because I want to knead this a little tiny bit, and I want to put the seam kind of down. I want to pinch it all together and just make sure that it's all in a nice smooth round ball before I place it into my mixing bowl. Okay, as you can see here, I brought my dough all together, and you know, I just wanted to make sure that it was all nice and creased and brought together. Now I'm going to place it into this bowl, but what I want to do is I want to swirl it around in this canola oil, and I want to get it good and covered with this canola, because I don't want my dough to dry out in here. Now, I'm just going to flatten it down just a little bit. I want to make sure that all of it is covered, which it is. You want to make sure that all your sides are good and coated, because it's important. Now, I'm going to cover this up with plastic wrap, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have my dough in my bowl. It's covered well with canola oil, and the bowl is covered on the inside and the bottom with canola oil as well. I've got it covered here twice with plastic wrap. I made sure that it's good and secure all the way around, and I will tell you, it has been bitter cold here. So there's honestly, I feel like there's not really a warm place to put this little baby. So what I do is I go ahead and I turn my oven on, which you're going to want to have a 350 degree oven. And then this is going to cook for about this will bake, excuse me, for 40 minutes. But you're going to have to let this double in size, and that can take a little bit of time, especially when it's not really warm. So what I do is I go ahead, I preheat my oven. I just set this back on the back, because right here the heat comes out of my oven. I don't want it to sit super close to that, because I don't want it to start baking it. I just want to keep it warm. Also, the surface of my oven here stays very warm. 2 days ago it was super cold here. I made cinnamon rolls and a loaf of bread, so I had it all up here on the top of my oven. I had no issues with the dough rising. However, I may do another option of putting a towel even over top of the plastic wrap, just to make sure that well, I like to joke around and say that my baby's napping, but just so that I know that it's in a dark, warm place and it's rising. I'll come back in 2 or 3 hours to see how big it is, and then I'll show you what it looks like after it doubles in size. So between when it gets doubled, you are going to need to get your bread pan out, and I'll put you know, all of the ingredients that you need and everything that you're going to have in order to make this bread in the description box down below. You are going to have to, now you can definitely use the Pam spray on your loaf pan, but I just put my hands into Crisco oil and I just grease it lightly on the inside before I go putting my dough in there. But I will show you that step next. So it'll only be seconds for you all, but it's going to be about 3 or 4 hours for me before this baby rises. So I'll be back soon. Okay, so we're back, and we are back to our final step in our bread. And I'll show you what it looks like. It's been sitting on top of the oven, and it has doubled in size. Can you see? And it smells really, really good. So all you want to do is you want to have your glass pan greased. And I'm just going, this isn't very hard, I'm just going to turn this out to a floured surface. And you can see all those little air bubbles that's there. I'm trying not to watch the, I'm trying to watch the shadow in the video, but it's evening now. And so you want to put a little bit, excuse my hands in the way and everything, but just a little bit of flour on top. And all you want to do is you just want to just bring this together. So honestly, not much to it. That's it. It's all brought together. You want to make sure that your seams, you know, I try to tuck them as good as I can in the bottom, but it's all going to come together. You want your seam on the bottom. I just kind of take my hands and make a good little baby loaf. And then I pop this right in here, like that. And I am going to cover this with some plastic wrap. I'm going to put it back over my oven. And you want this to raise right above the edging of your bread pan. So I'll come right back whenever it is fully raised. So my bread is risen. Okay, so we're back, and my bread just came out. It's nice and golden brown, and I'm going to pop this out. Now, if you have a cooling rack, you'll want to put this on a cooling rack. I don't have one. I just let it sit and cool completely, because if you try to cut it now, it'll squish down, and it won't actually be slices of bread. Although, if you could smell my house right now, you could understand why we don't care if it gets squished half the time, because it smells very, very good. So there is my bread, and it is out, and we are going to let this cool completely, and then you can enjoy. So I hope y'all learned something about making bread, and I'll be talking to you again soon. Bye.
Show us your mittens.